Today's lesson is Why do women still change their names after marriage? Hello, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Helen.
And today we're again trying to answer the question, why do women still change their names after marriage, especially when they don't have to anymore in Western countries, okay? They used to have to change their name if they got married, but now they don't have to. But even though they don't have to, a lot of them still choose to take their husband's name when they get married.
That's right. And I guess it depends on which country you're from. In Japan, for instance, there isn't a law that says a woman has to take her husband's name, but there is a law that says that the couple needs to unify under one name. So it could actually be the woman's name or the man's name. But since a society where men are more dominant, the practice is for women, at least 95% of the time, for women to adopt their husband's names.
And when I got married, of course, I thought it was absurd that my wife would take my surname. I just thought, hey, you know, her surname is Wong. That's what it should be. I would feel very embarrassed if she actually had my surname as her surname as well. So I guess it kind of depends on the person. But technically, you can do whatever you want to. You can take whatever name you want to when you get married. Although you may have to apply for special permission if both of you get married and take a totally new surname that neither of you have in the first place. But that's kind of weird. I don't think anybody really ever does that. But in any case, let's get to it here. Let's continue to try to answer this question. Let's listen now to the first part of today's lesson.
In the United States, 70% of women still take their husband's surname, and in the United Kingdom, nearly all women do. Women have different reasons for making this choice. However, many cite the role they are expected to play after marriage as a factor in the decision.
大家好，第一部分我们看到单字 cite， 这个字是动词，指作为例证的、引用、提及。例如 You'll have to cite some examples to support your point in the article. 你将得要引用一些例子来支持你文章中的论点，或是The musician cited her family as the inspiration for her hit song. 那名音乐家说家人是他那首畅销歌曲的灵感来源。另外，补充一个同义动词 quote, Q-U-O-T-E, quote, 指引用话语、文章等。举例来说 Sean has a good memory, and he can quote many famous writers. Sean 有很好的记忆力，且他能引用许多名作家的话。
And welcome back. So let's look at the United States. Why do women in the United States still change their names after marriage? Well, it says here in the United States, 70% of women still take their husband's surname. And in the United Kingdom, nearly all women do. So that's pretty surprising because in those two countries, there is a very strong sense of equality between the sexes, and women seem to have more or less equal rights as men. So why is it that in the United States and in the United Kingdom, so many women still take their husband's surnames?
Yeah, it's a good question. Of course, in the United States, the majority of women prefer to take their husband's surname when they get married. But in the UK, England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, all women do there, at least nearly all women do. So the tradition is still very much alive, and women have different reasons for making this choice. Okay, so yeah, they want to take their husband's name for different reasons. However, many cite the role they are expected to play after marriage as a factor in the decision. So if they're asked why they want to take their husband's name, well, they cite different reasons. So here we've got the word cite as a verb. It's C-I-T-E here, not S-I-G-H-T. It's cite here with a C, 4 letters here. And that means you just kind of indicate something, you state something as evidence or something like that. So this is what they say. They cite this, or they just simply say that, well, you know, I took my husband's surname because that's going to refer reflect my role after I get married. I'm going to be a housewife or whatever, and people should consider me as his wife.
Right. And just for reference, another usage of the verb to cite is when you want to mention an author or a quote when you're writing an essay or an article. You might want to cite somebody if you want to include what somebody else said in your writing. So you cite a source, you cite another person's words. That's another usage of the verb to cite.
Okay, let's move on now to the second part of our lesson for today. We will listen first.
To be considered good wives, women have traditionally been expected to sacrifice for the good of their families. While there's nothing wrong with retaining one's own interests and identity after marriage, women don't want to be seen as selfish, and keeping their surname could damage the appearance of family unity. Men are able to change their surname to that of their wife to establish a single family name, but few are willing. Other women see the name change as a part of the romance of marriage and a chance to have a fresh start. They believe that taking their husband's name strengthens the bond they share as a couple and leads to a healthier relationship.
第二部分我们看到动词 retain 指保有保留，像是 The house I bought last year has retained its original value. 我去年买的房子还保有原来的价值，或是 Though our department is being restructured, we will retain most of our employees. 虽然我们的部门正在进行改组，但会留住大部分的员工。另外，补充一个相关片语 retain a or one's foothold, F-O-O-T-H-O-L-D. Retain a or one's foothold 表示维持立足点。例如It's becoming increasingly difficult for us to retain a foothold in the e-commerce sector. 要在电子商务领域维持立足点，对我们来说是越来越难了。接着我们看到单字 strengthen 这个字是动词，指加强、强化。例如 My trip to New Delhi strengthened my understanding of Indian culture. 我的新德里之行增强了我对印度文化的理解。或是 The new agreement strengthened ties between the two countries. 这项新协定强化了两国之间的关系。再来我们看到名词Bond 指联系、束缚、关系。我们可以说 There's a strong bond between Jake and his brothers. Jake 和他的兄弟之间有强烈的感情联系。或是 My twin sister and I have a very strong bond. It's almost like we can read each other's minds. 我的双胞胎妹妹和我关系非常亲密，就像我们几乎可以猜到彼此的心思。再来，这个字也可以当动词，指建立关系、培养感情。举例来说 Let's hold a party so that the new club members can bond. 我们来举办派对，好让我们社团的新成员可以凝聚向心力。再补充一个相关片语 bond with 表示与发展情谊，像是 Over the summer, Leona bonded with her cousin, whom she hadn't seen for years. 这个夏天 Leona 和多年未见面的表妹感情变得很好。
So we were talking about women in the United States and in the United Kingdom, how they usually take on their husbands' names after marriage and that they cite different reasons for this decision, for this choice. And one of the reasons why they do this is to be considered good wives. Women have traditionally been expected to sacrifice for the good of their families. So it's the role of women to sacrifice themselves, to do things that benefit not themselves directly, but that benefit the husband, the children, the family unit.
Yes, this is the thought that people are considering here. Yes, when I get married, I want to be a good wife. I'm here to make sure the children get raised properly, they're healthy, they're happy, they're well fed, and they go to good schools and stuff like that. I'm going to make these sacrifices. And while there's nothing wrong with retaining one's own interests and identity after marriage, women don't want to be seen as selfish and keeping their surname could damage the appearance of family unity. Again, this is according to traditional thinking, okay? People may or may not think this way anymore. So here we've got the word retain. That just means to keep something. You might want to retain ownership of a business even though you're not going to work there anymore.
Right. Or I could say the sign of a successful company is its ability to retain workers. So I suppose in the past, women, after they got married, they no longer worked because they had to stay home and take care of the children and cook and basically keep the house running. So their identity wasn't that important because a part of identity is how you present yourself to society. So women stayed home most of the time and they weren't in society, then retaining their own surnames wasn't that important. And it became more important to unify with the husband, to become one with the husband.
Right, so yeah, they certainly can retain their own interests, if they like sports and stuff like that, or if they like playing the stock market or whatever, they can retain those interests, and they can also retain their identity after they get married. But yeah, they don't want to be seen as selfish, at least in traditional societies. So I guess in the past, if a woman still wanted to keep her career and stuff like that, people probably thought, hey, you're supposed to focus 100% on your family. You're not supposed to have a career. That's being very selfish of you to continue working after marriage. And if you kept your surname, or your maiden name as it's sometimes called, it could affect the appearance of the family unity. Hey, why does your wife still have her maiden name? That means your family is not really functioning very well.
That's true. It could be a sign that you don't value your husband enough if you want to keep your maiden name, or that you value your own interests more than you do the well-being of your family. But in any case, men are able to change their surname to that of their wife to establish a single family name as well. But few are willing. So it doesn't go just one way. Men are actually able to take on their wives' surnames if they need to have one surname for the family unit. But in this case, maybe men are being selfish because they don't want to give up their own names.
That's possible as well, but as I've said earlier, I think my surname is kind of boring. It's just one syllable. I'm so embarrassed that I don't even want to tell you what it is right here. So yeah, I was perfectly willing to take my wife's surname if it was more interesting than my own. But in any case, yes, this is also something that people considered. And here in the next sentence it says, other women see the name change as a part of the romance of marriage and a chance to have a fresh start. So yeah, women sometimes agree to change their surname because, hey, it's part of the romance of marriage. And romance basically just means the love, the compassion, all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's the feeling associated with being in love with someone, and you also behave a certain way when you're in a romance, when you're in a relationship with somebody that you love very much. And of course, when you marry someone, you're in love with the person you marry, and initially it's a romance. However, romances soon change to reality, and it might fade, not in all cases, but in some cases, romances might fade after a few years of marriage when reality sets in.
Exactly. So that is another consideration here. And also they believe that taking their husband's name strengthens the bond. We'll be closer together. Strengthen here, of course, means to make something stronger. A bond is a connection, okay? So yes, this is the connection, how well they stick together. Yes, if you take your husband's name, hey, you'll be closer together and you'll be less likely to get divorced in the future.
Right. And just a few example sentences for these words. To strengthen, you could also say you need to strengthen your willpower if you want to quit smoking cigarettes, or if you want to lose weight, or if you want to get in shape. And as for bond, some people say that there is no bond stronger than the one between a mother and her children.
That is a very strong bond indeed. So they want to strengthen that bond, and they share that as a couple, and that will lead to a healthier relationship. It will be a very, very happy marriage. Well, yeah, they're going to have arguments and stuff like that, and they'll throw things across the living room, but in the end, they'll still be very, very close to each other, and they'll love each other until the end of time. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson. Let's move on now to the third part, and we'll listen to it, and we'll wrap up our article.
For women who want to change their names without following a tradition rooted in sexism, another option is growing in popularity. More couples are choosing to combine their surnames into a single family name that both partners share, thus starting their marriage off on a more equal footing.
最后第三部分，我们看到单字 sexism 这个字是名词，指性别歧视。例如 The company has been accused of sexism since promotions were only offered to men. 这间公司被指控性别歧视，因为只有男性获得升迁。
So we've looked at a few reasons why women still change their names to their husbands after marriage. One is that they get caught up in the romance of marriage, they're in love, and they want to be one with their husbands, so they adopt their husbands' names. Another one is that they don't want to seem selfish, too interested in maintaining their own identities. They want to seem like they are sacrificing for their families, and that is another reason why they have decided to change their names. Now, for women who want to change their names without following a tradition rooted in sexism, there is another option. Another option is growing in popularity.
Right, so yeah, they may not want to take their husband's surname, so yeah, they may not want to follow this tradition that is rooted in sexism. Rooted in means based in sexism, you could also say. Yes, it is sexist to assume that a woman should take her husband's surname. I shouldn't be like that. It is sexist indeed. So we've got another choice or another option that is becoming more popular. And here it is. More couples are choosing to combine their surnames into a single family name that both partners share, thus starting their marriage off on a more equal footing. Okay, so yeah, that way their marriage would start off more equally. It wouldn't be assuming that the husband was in charge and the wife has to do what she's told. In this case, they would be considered equal partners in the marriage. So yeah, they're combining their surnames into a single family name. Okay, so if Mr. Wilson marries Miss Smith, then their name would be Wilson Smith or Smith Wilson, or maybe Smilson or something like that.
Smilson, that sounds very interesting.
Or Wilf.
But usually I think when they combine their surnames, they will just put the surnames together with a hyphen or a dash in between, and which one goes first is the choice of the couple. And doing so would put both partners on a more equal footing. So that means they start off the marriage being more equal to each other, so that might avoid some conflicts later on with one party saying to the other that they don't have enough rights or they don't have enough decision-making power. It just puts the two people in the relationship on an equal footing. And also, this phrase, on a more equal footing, although you can use it for people, you can also use it for other things. For instance, countries. For instance, I could say countries that are more developed should assist lesser developed countries so that the two can be on a more equal footing.
That's right. So they can all be equal and things can be fair and everybody's happy and nobody will be complaining that somebody got something and somebody else didn't get that something. Mom always liked you best, for example. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. It's time now to listen to our Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分写到， 为了被认为是好妻子，女性传统上被期待要为家庭的利益而牺牲。好，文中是用到单字 retain 来表达保有、保留。好，那我们来学习它的字首字根。好 ，tain 这个字根呢，它有 hold 或者是 keep 的意思，表示保留、持有或是维持。那么在 retain 这个字当中，它的字首 re 表示 back 往回，字根 tain 表示 hold 保留，那么合在一起我们看到它就是 hold back， 所以这个 retain 它就有保留保存的语义咯。我们顺便来补充2个有相同字根的单字，第一个是 contain， 它的字首 con 表示一起，字根 tain 表示包含，那我们把2部分合在一起 contain 就是表达包含、含有、包括的意思。第2个补充的是 pertain pertain， 它的字首 per 表示透过，那么字根 tain 表示 hold 持有，那我们可以试着以说透过某人或是透过某种关系而持有某事物，用这样的方式来联想说 pertain 它有相关附属的意思。好，那课文最后就写到，越来越多夫妻选择结合双方的姓氏来建立一个家族姓，在一个更平等情况下展开他们的婚姻。好，文中是用到片语动词 start off 去表达展开他们的婚姻。好，那么 start off 就表示开始，它当及物用的时候呢， start off 的受词可以是人或是事物，后面常常会搭配 with 加名词，用来写作 start off somebody or something with 名词，或者是你也可以写作 start somebody off start something off 后面加 with 加名词，这就可以表达以什么来开始某事物，以什么来开始做某事。好，例如 The interviewer started her off with a brief self-introduction， 面试官让他从简短自我介绍开始。好，那么 start off 它也可以做不及物用，后面你可以接动词 ing， 或是接形容词，或是接 as 加名词等等，用来表达以什么样的方式、状态或是身份等等开始，以什么什么来作为起步。例如 Simon started off as a sales assistant，But now he's the marketing director. Simon 一开始是业务助理，但他现在却是行销主管。好，另外有一个片语叫做 start off on the right foot， 字面意思是从对的脚开始，那就是引申表达说某人或某事物它有好的开始，成功迈出第一步，尤其是指有好的人际关系。好，那么后面可以接 with somebody 来表达一开始就跟某人建立起好关系。相反的 start off on the wrong foot 就表示出师不利，一开始就给人坏印象，建立了不好的关系。举例来说 They started off on the wrong foot when they first met，他们初次见面的时候就给彼此留下坏印象，相处的不融洽。好，以上是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Site. The museum is often cited as an example of modern architecture. Retain. If you damage your apartment, your landlord can retain your deposit. Romance. There is romance to the idea of leaving civilization behind and living alone in the woods. Strengthen. These exercises will strengthen the muscles in your legs. Bond. The young child had a strong bond with her mother. Option. You have 2 options. You can come with us to the beach, or you can stay home.
Discussion starter starts now!
All right, it's time for our discussion starter for today. Let me ask this question, Helen. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, here it comes. Is changing one's name after marriage a tradition that should continue? Why or why not?
I don't think women should continue changing their name after marriage because what if you're an only child and you have no male cousins or other family members and you change your name after you get married and then your own last name just disappears from the family line?
Yeah, that's a good point there. I hope my daughter can keep her surname as well to keep the surname alive. But for me, I think it's up to the individual. If a woman wants to change her name, that's totally up to her. And if the man wants to change his name, that should be up to him as well. Yes, we should allow all options. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.